Welcome to Business Like a Mother, the podcast for moms in business by moms in business. Hey, I'm Jen Morris, here to help you amplify your voice, grow your brand, blaze your trail, and navigate the beautiful chaos of motherhood and entrepreneurship. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to Business Like a Mother. So last episode, I started talking about networking and the profound effect it's had in my life and my business, and why especially moms building businesses need a really strong professional and personal network. So today I want to get into this a little bit more because, as I mentioned on the last episode, it bears more of a conversation. And this is really misconceptions about networking. So if you are someone who just hearing the word makes you cringe, you are not alone. And today we're going to break down the myths that make networking feel awkward or even sometimes just a waste of time, and talk about how you can make it work better for you. So let's get into it. Okay. Myth number one, networking is sleazy. So let's just rip off the Band-Aid, get this one out of the way. Networking has earned a bad reputation, and I get it. I have been on the receiving end of going to events only to feel like I was just sold to one person after another, or not even talked to at all because the people there only wanted to talk to the people that they knew. And sometimes it can just feel gross. We have all been on the receiving end of those robotic pitches or those pushy messages that feel like a sales trap than an actual wanting to get to know somebody. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a conversation where the person just talks at me and then is like, okay, it was nice talking to you. And I'm like, but we didn't actually talk. You talked at me, right? So the reality is that networking is not about pitching or pushing products or services. Again, it's about building authentic, meaningful relationships. And we have all probably been guilty of getting nervous and going into this default kind of pushy energy instead of thinking about how can we pull people towards us and create curiosity and want to leave people wanting more, right? We want people wanting to know more about us, wanting to go to our website, wanting to have coffee with us, right? So have you ever connected with someone just because they seemed real? It could have been, you can be standing in line with somebody waiting to order a latte and strike up a conversation, and all of a sudden, this person is really cool. Or at a random kids event. I see so many people while I'm sitting in the lobby of my 4-year-old's dance studio, just getting to know each other and chatting, and just genuine interest in other people's lives. That is the core of effective networking. Just because you are at a business networking event does not mean just common interest in people's lives has to go out the window. That's often where it starts. So a quick action tip for you is the next time you meet somebody new, ask them about their story, not their job title, just their story. What drives them? What lights them up? Because when you lead with curiosity, connection naturally follows. And what's interesting to me is when I lived in New York City and before that DC, so I was on the East Coast for 15 plus years. And then we moved to Colorado. And it was such a shift because in New York, when you're out meeting somebody, whether it was a networking event or just happy hour or on the dating scene, whatever that was, it was always what do you do? What do you do? What do you do for work? And so I sort of had, that was just the way everybody interacted with each other, because that's a little more of the energy of New York, or it was when I lived there. When I moved to Colorado, I noticed nobody asked that. Nobody really cared what you did. Eventually it would come up sometimes, but that wasn't the first thing. People often said, what do you do on weekends? Or what's your activity? Do you ski? Do you snowboard? Do you run? Do you hike? Because everyone's outdoorsy here. Do you have animals? And it was a shift for me because I still was in that default of well, what do you do? Because that was my New York City, that's what everybody did. If you asked somebody in New York City what they did for fun, they kind of looked at you strangely. But it was a good lesson for me to have to reflect back of life is not just about work, right? So now I try to be more cognizant of that and just get to know people of who they are, not necessarily what they do. Okay, so myth number 2 is that you need to be an extrovert in order to network effectively. And listen, you absolutely do not need to be the loudest person in the room to be a great network. In fact, I would say introverts often can make the best connections because they are really good at listening and building deeper, more meaningful relationships. They may not want to talk as much, so they may be the ones asking the really good questions and getting a lot more insight about the person. And so that can actually be like a superpower. So if you are more comfortable in small groups or one-on-one conversations, like lean into that. You can still go to the larger events, but again, just set the goal of like, I want to meet 1 or 2 people at this. That's a success. And then actually, if I like them, if I feel like there's a connection here, follow up with them to get to know them a little more intimately. You don't have to like work a room. You can create real impact by being intentional with just a few people. Quality over quantity every single time. I struggle with this sometimes because I'm at a place with Renegade Motherhood where we have our flagship location, which is always a really big turnout. It's the biggest one. And then we're getting other locations off the ground. And sometimes because it's new, it takes time to get the word out and get people there. And so I'm often like, oh no, there's only 10 people registered for this one, but there were 40 or 50. The other one was sold out. But I have to remind myself that it's not just about having 50 people in a room. If you have 10 amazing, grounded, awesome moms in business with some of those things in common just from the get-go, the fact that we are moms in business, it can actually, you can go deeper in an hour and a half meeting than you can if there are 50 people. So one is not necessarily better than the other. And if you are somebody who's hosting events or trying to get a bunch of people in a room, and maybe feeling like there's not enough people, like I hope that's a good reminder for you that sometimes magic can happen with 3 or 4 people in a room. It doesn't have to be 300 people every time. So a quick tip, instead of aiming to meet 20 new people at an event, focus on maybe having 3 meaningful conversations, getting to know people, asking more questions than you are talking, and follow up afterward to really deepen those connections. Myth number 3, the bigger the network, the better. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, like bigger event, be better, not necessarily. So this one is tricky in a couple ways because while yes, having a wide network can be helpful for sure, but again, you also don't want a huge network of people who like don't remember how they met you, right? It's like the Facebook friend phenomenon. You see people who have 5,000 Facebook friends. Like most of them are people they probably don't even know who just friend requested them because they have people in common, right? So that's not necessarily doing much for you. And then when you're posting content to an audience like that, like maybe the right people aren't seeing it because it's going out to so many people. And I don't know if that's actually true. They say that about algorithm. Who knows? They're changing all the time. I don't know. But anyway, you would rather have an email list, for example, of 50 people and 45 of them open your emails and actually read them and respond than 4,500 people and nobody's opening them and people are just unsubscribing because they don't remember how they met you, right? So again, smaller, engaged, and supportive can be more powerful than a massive list of superficial contacts because depth, again, beats breadth. So it can be easy to get caught up in this number game, again, with social media, LinkedIn, all the metrics out there, all the likes and everything. But like, again, you want to ask yourself, how many of those connections actually know what you do? How many of them would actually refer you to someone else? If the answer is, I have no idea or not many, it might be time to shift focus into nurturing your existing network than just trying to get more and more likes on things, right? So, quick tip, choose 5 people in your network this week, reach out, not to pitch, to check in, okay? Send them a note, share an article that you think they might like, send them this podcast episode and be like, I thought of you, right? Or just ask how they're doing. There's a lot going on in the world, in the US where I'm based, and people need people to support them through life right now. So it can be a great time to be like, I was thinking about you. I just want to check in. How are you doing? Things have been a little heavy. What's going on? How can I support you? Small touch points can really help strengthen your connections. So networking should energize you. It should not constantly feel like I really should do that. You should want to do it, and because it's not draining you. So if you are attending events or joining that feel crappy, or you're part of a group that feels like a chore, it's probably not the right fit. You also may have found that groups that used to be good for you in a certain season of your life are not the right fit for you anymore, and that's okay. Again, quality versus quantity. If you find that you're in like 5 or 6 networking organizations and you're spending all your time going to these meetings that you don't actually have time to follow up or do other business, it might be time to downsize a little bit and be part of 1 or 2 that you can actually show up and do the things instead of just saying like, I'm members of these groups, but you aren't actually showing up. And I've had to do that before. I've had to edit. I've had to get really intentional and make sure I'm leaving enough space in my calendar to not just be constantly going to events, but also like doing the follow-up and the other things that are important in my business. So again, as moms in business, it's important that we honor that we are in a season and we don't have time to waste and we want to be intentional. You don't have to say yes to every opportunity. So seek out groups and events that really align with your values and your energy. Moms in business need networking spaces that are going to respect our time and our energy and our realities. So that's why finding the right community, one that really understands this juggle of motherhood and entrepreneurship, can make all the difference. So your action step here is to audit your current networking spaces. Which ones light you up, which ones drain you, and then give yourself permission to step back from spaces that don't align and lean into ones that do. So, a couple final thoughts here. Again, networking doesn't have to feel sleazy or forced. It doesn't require you to be an extrovert or know hundreds of people. It does require authenticity, curiosity, intention, and I'm also going to add some consistency. If you go to one event and then wonder why networking didn't work for you, it can work for you if at that event you're curious, you make a couple intentional connections, you follow up with those people and keep them in your network, then yes, it can work. But oftentimes it's showing up. As an actor, I didn't audition one time and wonder why I wasn't booking work, right? I had to keep auditioning. I had to keep practicing. I had to keep working my craft and know that in some ways it was a bit of a numbers game. I had to build a relationship with the casting directors and the other people who were making some of the casting decisions. So a lot of that meant putting myself in front of them on multiple occasions so they got to know who I was. Networking is similar in that respect. So when you start, though, doing that, showing up and focusing on building real connections instead of just collecting contacts, everything really can change. So here's your challenge this week. I want you to bust through one of these networking myths that you've been holding on to. Show up differently, whether that means being brave and starting a genuine conversation, being the first to ask a question other than, what do you do? Maybe it's following up with an old contact. Maybe it is somebody that you used to talk to a lot and you've lost touch with them and just saying, hey, I was thinking about you. Like, I noticed this is going on, or I noticed that you started a podcast. Congratulations, right? Or step into a new community that aligns with your values and the season of life that you're in. So I hope this was helpful. Definitely follow me on Instagram at renegade.motherhood and at itsjenmorris. And you can always send me a message and let me know like if any of this is helpful, what you're putting into action. I would love to hear it. And of course, share this with anybody who maybe could use a refresh this year on professional networking. And in our next episode, we're going to do one more dive into 5 actionable ways that you can really maximize your business network. But until then, keep showing up, putting yourself out there and connecting in ways that feel real and right for you because you are ready to do business like a mother. Thanks for tuning in to Business Like a Mother. If you love this episode, do me a favor and make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss a moment. And if you're feeling extra generous, leave a review. It helps other moms in business find the show and join this amazing community. Because we are not meant to do motherhood or business alone. Want more? Head to renegademotherhood.com for resources, workshops, and events designed just for moms like you. Until next time, keep growing your business, raising your voice, and blazing your trail like a mother.